Before you turn 18, you can't buy alcohol, vote, or get married without your parents' consent. But now teens are facing another ban, with some supermarkets adapting an over-18s only policy at certain times of the day.
As one 13-year-old discovered after being kicked out of a Morrisons while trying to buy food alone. So, do supermarkets have a right to tackle antisocial behaviour? Or is this a ban on under-18s that simply goes too far? Joining us now is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, who supports a ban on under-18s in our supermarkets, not just on under-18s, and blogger Tinuke Bernard, who says a ban is discrimination. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I was quite shocked. 13-year-old, after school, going to get food for a school project, for instance. Or, I mean, I've got one under-18-year-old still at home. Sometimes I need him to go up and get stuff from the shop. Do not want my local supermarket saying you can't come in.
Well, clearly, a few are spoiling it for the many, and retailers are having a difficult time in many regards these days. When I go to the shops, want it to be an enjoyable experience. I don't want to go to a supermarket to find it plagued by shoplifters, although it often is, and I don't want to go to a shopping mall to find it plagued by groups of teenagers causing havoc. Retailers are entitled to impose whatever restrictions they like.
Tinuke.
Well, they're not. I mean, let's be factual. They're allowed as long as they're not discriminatory.
Okay.
They can't ban disabled people or people of colour. So they're not entitled to full...
Within the law.
Are teenagers in danger of being discriminated against?
Well, they're being discriminated by this rule. I think, as you rightly said, we wouldn't discriminate against race or, you know, or other aspects. So why can we do it against age? You know, we wouldn't... And this particular age, they can't vote, they don't have the buying power of other age groups. So we're unfairly, you know, punishing them in a way we wouldn't dare do to adults.
But this isn't new. I remember as a teenager myself, our local corner shop banged young people after about 4 o'clock because of shoplifting then. So this isn't a new thing going on. What would you suggest the retailers do when they're faced by a plague of shoplifting?
I think using the word plague, number one, should probably, be scrapped.
I mean, we are seeing a massive increase in shoplifting, which is becoming a huge problem for retailers, often on the back of the cost of living problem. So you're right, plague's probably too strong, but let's not under-egg the pudding that this is a really big problem that is happening for retailers.
Of course, and I think there must be other measures we can put in place as opposed to tarring an entire demographic with the same brush. It's not fair to say all teenagers can't go into a shop because, you know, a few teenagers are causing a problem that all teenagers now have to suffer for that.
And the measures that could be put in place are the police, for example, choosing to deal with thieves. Now, there's an old school idea, but they're not. Shoplifting has basically been decriminalised. It would help if retailers abandoned their kind of no interference or no challenge policy, which some have.
Well,
I want to see
Peter,
robust security
yeah,
staff.
but the Association of Convenience Stores says 87% of store colleagues have experienced verbal abuse. And that's just verbal abuse. I can imagine that non-interference is probably protecting staff.
Yeah, and physical abuse as well.
Exactly.
It's at dreadful, dreadful levels. But it's not going to get any better by people rolling over and having their tummies tickled. It needs robust action. It needs store security staff, suitably trained, having a robust attitude, not tolerating this abuse. People don't go to work in a supermarket to be abused or assaulted. Likewise, we don't go shopping only to see some unscrupulous thief running out with bottles of whiskey that they don't want to pay for.
We're looking at shoplifting, and much of the growth in shoplifting is being put down to the cost of living. So one would assume that there are adults over 18s who are shoplifting to help their children. Is it not unfair to only penalise and target the teens who are shoplifting and not the grown-ups?
Kindly show me the proof that it's driven by the cost of living crisis.
That's what the boss of John Lewis said.
Because I know, well, where's his research? I'd like to read that, please. Her research, thank you very much. I stand corrected. A lot of the shoplifting that I see is just greed, thieving,
I don't
stealing.
think so. I think,
Absolutely.
no.
So they can take it down a pub and flog it to their
There are
mates.
people stealing baby food, stealing formula, nappies. They're not doing that to flog it. They're doing it because they're desperate. They're doing it because they have no choice in the matter, because they can't afford
Not
to buy
everybody.
these things. But not everybody's
There's
doing
a
it to
high
get alcohol, are
percentage
they?
of professional thieving going on out there.
And aren't we saying
Not
those are
just the cost of
teenagers?
living
Because they're not, though. They're more likely to be the adults, aren't they? If we find out that most shoplifters are female, are we going to start banning all females from the shop? Where do we start? Where do we draw the line? If we start with the teenagers, where do we then say, OK, actually we find that a certain race is more likely to steal, or a certain sexuality? Do we start saying that they can't go to the shop?
I'm not in the slightest bit concerned in who's doing the thieving. I want the thieving tackled by security staff, by the police, by the Crown prosecution system, so that people get in front of courts and are suitably punished.
You're a former police officer.
Yes.
Why aren't the police tackling shoplifting? Who's changed the priorities?
Many moons ago, the police stupidly themselves made it public that they wouldn't deal with shoplifting less than £200. That, of course, created a criminals charter. And unfortunately, retailers and members of the public are paying the price for it. Because so much is disappearing, which is not paid for, the retailers up the prices, and us, the straight runners, go and have to pay more money.
So we mentioned the boss, John Lewis. Interestingly, Waitrose, which is part of the John Lewis Group, has adopted a new tactic. It's called love bombing. And you love bomb the customers in a bid to combat spiralling shoplifting. And the company claims that being extra attentive to customers and friendly, including at the checkouts, is an effective deterrent. Let's love bomb our teenagers. That's the way to stop them being troublesome.
If every time you walk in the store, someone's saying hello, someone's talking to you, someone's engaging with you, you both may be more reticent to steal, but also you feel you're being watched a little bit more. But although if Peter says that the decriminalisation, if you're right, I mean, that obviously, for professional thieves, means life is a lot easier.
And love bombing won't deter the professional thieves. Back in my day in uniform, I love bombed them straight in at the back of the van, mind your head.